No one ever did anything about income. Never. Every NGO out there, we have 600 million people in Africa that don't have electricity. We have 400 million that don't have clean water, but yet NGOs have spent $1 trillion trying to do that. Why has it not been fixed? Because they don't focus on the community.
In as much as we have mobile phones, our technology infrastructure still struggle.
Yes. I would disagree with you.
Yes.
I run a tech company.
Yes.
And we are here in Uganda. And you have more transparency in the markets that we're in than the US does.
Okay.
You guys figured out mobile banking before we did.
Hello everyone, my name is Grace, and once again, Driving Eco-Sustainability, my perspective podcast, and today I'm going to be delving into a conversation that is quite different, not the usual, because I'm going to be talking to someone who has done quite some work in Africa and is experienced in the space of carbon credits. And why have I brought this to you today? It's because I've had the honor of reading her book, Carbon Credits Are Crap. Jaye, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes. So it's not every day that I get to talk to someone who has authored a book that I have read, and as an avid reader, so today is quite different. It's not the usual.
Great.
Yes. So I'm going to get right straight into it. Yes. I first experienced Carbon Credits Are Crap as a TEDx space when you gave a TEDx talk in San Diego, and it's on YouTube. And what stood out for me, I'll actually just read out your opening statement, because I watched it and I wrote it down because I wanted to read it out exactly how you said it that day when you walked in. And you said that, imagine this, for every plume of fossil fuel that goes up in air, a tree springs up in Africa. For 30 years, this has been a bold promise of carbon credits. What if I told you that carbon credits are crap?
That is correct.
Yes.
That was my opening.
And that carbon credits can be a solution, but right now they are a smoke screen.
Yes.
Yes. So I'll get into it and ask why that title, and quite captivated actually.
Yes. So I was asked to talk about carbon credits by the TEDx curator in San Diego. And she actually came up with the title. When I said, let's talk about carbon credits, she goes, they're crap. And she goes, in fact, that should be your title. So that is where the title came from.
Yes. So would I be right to say that after that TEDx space, it led into the book?
Yeah. So TED Talks are very regulated. Every word is approved by lawyers like yourself. And you can't really talk about specifics. Like we couldn't talk about Zimbabwe, which is what I wanted to talk, or about Chief Mola. I
know his name actually, yes.
Right? So I had to be very, very general. And that was afterwards, people came up to me and said, we didn't know. We didn't know about carbon credits. I'm like, how do you not know about a $2 trillion industry a year that you guys are buying these carbon credits? They didn't know. So I said, you know what? Need to write a book. So I sat down one weekend and wrote the book.
Just in one weekend?
One weekend.
Yes.
Because it's my story. It's my journey to understanding, because I had no idea until 2023. I just happened to read an article about it. And the article, you want me to go into that? The article said, there was the flagship carbon credit project in Zimbabwe. It was 1 million hectares. It was all over the climate summits. Flagship.
Yes.
Perfect. And it said, those forest-related carbon credits were worthless. 90% of them, worthless. So that they said bad for the climate because it didn't absorb the carbon like it was supposed to. Bad for the companies that bought them innocently to offset their pollution, but good for the communities. The communities got $30 million of community benefits. And I've been working in Africa for about 11 years, and I said, I got to go see this. So that's my journey. So it was my journey and the people I met along the way, and how, it's kind of like carbon credits for beginners to understand what is this complex market system.
Yes. So you did mention in the book and the TEDx talk that you go down to Zimbabwe And you meet the chief of this community, and he's actually surprised that this money actually exists and that it was supposed to benefit his community. And you mentioned that he actually said that if they had gotten that money, his community would be as good as and at the level of development as New York City.
He did.
Yes.
Yeah, he did.
Yes. So I wanted to find out, in Zimbabwe, was this a common denomination in all the other carbon projects that you experienced and went visiting and found that actually the communities were not benefiting? Money was just being siphoned out of Africa and benefiting someone else, while the people on ground were left voiceless, defenseless, and with nothing at all.
Yes, it is the common theme because there is no traceability. So if you look at the carbon market system, it's very, very complex, and we really just scratch the surface when talking about it. But you'd start with a project developer who builds a business plan, if you will, and says, this is what we're going to do. We're going to, preserve trees. We're going to give the communities this benefit. It's all spelt out in the plan. That then gets submitted to a regulatory agency called their Standards Governing Board. Yes. So that gets submitted there. It goes on a registry. It's all spelt out.
Yes.
I'm a former auditor. If I see a plan, I probably would audit against
You follow the money, you follow the trail.
Yeah,
Yes.
no one does that. So then they hire a third-party consultant to go out and look at the, trees and everything and see, did they do it? But somehow they didn't look to see the community benefits. I don't know why. I think it's a flaw in their methodology. They knew it was wrong. I interviewed them. They told me it was wrong, but they said, well, we bumped it up against the methodology, and the methodology was wrong, but however, that's what we used. And then it went to the company. So the companies think, oh, all these people along the line have approved it. It must be good, right? And no one ever stopped to think, hey, $30 million of community benefits, it's actually euros, not USD. That's life-changing for these people that don't have electricity, don't have water, they don't have anything. They don't even have internet, no jobs, no fuel, nothing. You could visibly see that if you went there. And it wasn't easy to get there. It was terrible. It was no roads. There was no one's going to do what I did, which is disheartening because you're supposed to do it. So anyway, it went through. The climate company made $100 million. The project developer absconded $57 million. It's like, and the communities got literally, I just saw the chief. I went and delivered my book to him last week. Oh, he was so excited because he doesn't really speak English. He's Tonga. And he just saw his pictures in there, and his wife's in there. They were all excited. I said, you guys are Hollywood now. You're movie stars. So I said, I couldn't help them out because he's like, where's the money? And we think we found the money, but I can't get it back to them. And the government's going after it, but we'll see.
Yes, now at the point of government, I like where you stopped right there. Do you think, even other than the fact that this industry has now become so predatory in nature, I'll use that word, that it's still predatory. Someone comes and takes out but leaves nothing for people here. Do you think also the inherent government structures in our communities here in Africa also contribute to this bias that someone is going to come in here and probably they're going to sell a very good story. Probably someone is going to be given money, maybe through corruption. Someone may take a bribe. And then at the end of the day, they're not going to follow up as long as they took their pick and they took their take. And then money is going to be taken out and the community is going to be left stranded. But not only that, even the government is going to be quite shocked because you mentioned that the governments were shocked that is air that expensive? Is it that beneficial?
Yeah, yes. I went to the government because I thought maybe the government took the money. I thought that exact same thing. And I met with the senior executives of the government and they were shocked. They were like, what? Someone made $100 million off our trees for air? We had no idea. They had no idea. I've never seen grown men so shocked. So it was like, I was shocked. They were shocked. And so they were like, can you help us? Can you educate us? So we had our first summit And I was there and I was on stage. It's a great story. I'm going through and I just said, look, Kariba was the project. That's the area. And it's a case for transparency. It was just a case study. Like, here's a reason why we need complete traceability and transparency. And the project developer and the standards board was in the back of the room, not happy with me on stage talking. And actually the moderator came up and told me to stop talking. I was offending people in the audience.
Why?
And I said, I don't care. I was on mic. I don't care. I will continue. And everyone afterwards was like, thank you for continuing. Because it was an education about this project. And they wanted to tell a different narrative. And that narrative wasn't truthful.
Yes. So I personally, like you mentioned in your book that, yes, the biggest three aspects of carbon projects, the biggest three areas where carbon projects are common in Africa is forest and land use, household and community projects, and cook stoves. Now, and you have gone ahead to mention that 90% of the carbon credits from forest and land use are worthless.
Yes.
Yes. So, and I'm left quite shocked because, and you went on to say that actually the biggest challenge would be that in Africa, in as much as we have a lot of green and land that could be used for the forest and land use carbon credit projects, we have an issue with permanence. We have a problem ensuring that these projects can actually exist for centuries. But also our land tenure systems and land ownership systems are also playing us quite a bit. So I wanted to find out from you, how was your experience in establishing that? Because as a Ugandan, I am aware that one of the areas where we are being told that carbon credits are going to benefit the communities the most is in forestry and land use conservation projects. Yes.
Yeah. So two things you need for when you look at a forest, you need additionality, meaning that you're adding something addition. So you can't draw a circle around a forest, tell the locals, do not touch it. Or let's say it's a national park. It's already a protected area. So you're not adding any additionality to that process. So that's number one. Number two is the permanence. Like this has to live for 30 years. Like, how do you know it's not the trees aren't being cut down or illegal logging, whatever it is. And so you have to do regular audits. Well, now with technology, we can fly a satellite over and see real time what's happening. So what we're doing now, there's a whole group of me, it's not just me alone, but we're digitizing this whole process, which you can imagine the UN and the global climate community doesn't want, because consultants are going to be out of jobs real soon, which I'm looking forward to. That is our goal. So we can digitize everything from beginning to end because these projects take a long time. A forest project takes 3 years, 18 months to 3 years to get certified.
Yes.
That's a lot of money. You're constantly going out doing stuff. That's a lot of money for a project developer. And they're borrowing money, they're getting financing, blah, blah, blah. And then that project will stay in place for 30 years. And so every 5 years, they're supposed to audit it. But they go out, they send somebody with a clipboard, literally, and a tape measure. They measure the tree of a random sample of 1 million hectares and say it grew that much. They go back and enter it into the computer and it says, oh, this is how much carbon has been absorbed. We can now fly a satellite over and tell you exactly what type of species the tree is, how much it's grown, and how much carbon it's absorbed within a second. That puts a lot of people out of jobs, huh?
Wow.
Yeah. So digitization is what we're moving towards for this climate market to make it completely traceable and transparent for the end buyer, for the companies or the individuals that are trying to offset their climate footprint and make sure the communities get what they receive. In each project, they're supposed to get between 20 and 30% of whatever that project makes. That's life-changing for a community. And I'm just tired of seeing the abuse. So that's why my voice is very loud in this.
Yes. So you, for me personally, I will say I use social media all the time. Like everyone else, we use social media. If we are not using social media, we are Netflixing or watching movies. So I was quite shocked when you mentioned that one of the projects you also visited, that's the Northern Kenya Rangelands project, that the carbon credits that came from there, which was a forestry and land use project, a section of them was purchased by Meta, which is Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, and then a section was also purchased by Netflix.
Sure.
But I wanted to find out, would we be asking too much from someone buying carbon credits to actually also go on ground and establish that what they are buying is actually legitimate? Because a buyer is going to say, me, by the time I got them, everything was done. But wouldn't we be right to ask for someone who is buying, a carbon credit buyer, to actually go on ground and establish that what they are buying is actually legitimate and is actually socially, it's impacting our community, because these are entities that actually have resources to actually go on ground and verify whatever is being purchased.
Yeah, so they relied on a broken system. They relied on a broken standards governing board. They relied on climate investors, and they relied on the current process. And even in that Zimbabwe project, people that bought the carbon credits were Total, Gucci, McKesson, L'Oreal, you name it, like big companies, a lot. They bought $100 million worth of carbon credits. And to put it in perspective, a forest carbon credit goes for about $3 to $4 a hectare per hectare. That's a lot of money. And when it broke that they were worthless, not one company said, this is not right. They could demand transparency. Rather than go on the ground, they needed to demand to make it right. And they didn't. They stayed silent. So shame on them. But you're right, they can demand, and now they are starting to demand different types of projects that are truly traceable. You can see, feel, touch it. But they didn't speak up. Number one was the issue. They did no action, and they let it roll because they didn't want the bad publicity.
Yes. So now community. You mentioned something around community-centered carbon credit projects, and you mentioned that communities should not. A project developer should not just come and implement a project and they say, hey, I have this, it's going to impact your community. You're going to get $30 million and I'm taking away 60. The community, you propose that the community should be involved in all the stages of the project development to create ownership. But not only that, because when the community is involved, it also helps with maximizing the successes of this project. So can you share more on that aspect of community-centered carbon credit?
Yeah, I want to turn that triangle upside down. And I want to start with the communities first, because they're going to tell you what they need and they'll own it if you're allowed. If you're coming in as a Westerner or from the North and saying, this is what we're going to do, and oh, by the way, you're going to get lessons on malaria, because that was a community benefit in this Zimbabwe project. You're going to get a little crappy garden, which that was a community benefit. You're not going to get schools. You're not going to get the things you need. We're going to do the things that are easy, check the box, and we're done. So in my opinion, the communities have to be the ones that say, this is what we need. And then they will own it, and it will make sure it's done right. Because if it's not done right, it goes away, right? And so they don't get the benefits. So I am all about community-centric first, and then let it flow down from there.
Yes. From our discussion, at least I've noticed that at the center of this all is the need for harnessing technology. Because with technology, we are going to be able to have more transparency and traceability. And you mentioned that we need to move away from the impressionable, glossy, high quality looking photographs of someone showing you hectares of a forest, or a 5-second video showing you a forest somewhere in Zimbabwe or in Kenya, or showing you people who are practicing agroforestry. Right. We need to move away from that and actually have that we integrate the use of technology,
Yes.
which is going to bring about transparency, but it's also going to improve efficiency because with the use of AI, we are going to be able to integrate and analyze data, which is going to increase also the financial benefits from these projects. You actually mentioned that you classed it as the digital monitoring, verification, and reporting systems. So I just wanted to find out how practical do you think this is going to work, especially here in Africa? Because as you may know, in as much as we have mobile phones, our technology infrastructure still struggle.
Yes. I would disagree with you.
Yes.
I run a tech company.
Yes.
And we are here in Uganda. And you have more transparency in the markets that we're in than the US does.
Okay.
You guys figured out mobile banking before we did. You don't have the legacy technology system, so you're more willing to put new stuff in. So I will tell you that Africa, how I see it, has better infrastructure, more willing to adopt faster because you don't have that legacy ICT systems. So that's the good news. The second
we don't have monopoly. And when you come in, you can, technology can easily be adopted. A tech system can easily be adopted and implemented.
Yes. So that's what I see great about Africa. And I work throughout all Sub-Saharan Africa. I have a cell phone. I never buy a SIM card. I use my American service and I never don't have service, no matter where I am. That's pretty advanced. And then you look at Starlink coming in. I mean, that's changing communities' lives. And when I went back to the chief last week, he asked for Starlink. And I'm like, well, let's get you some Starlink. So you're more willing to adopt quicker, faster than the US or anyone else because they're just slow, because they have such heavy systems. They can't easily move. So with the adoption of AI, which is super exciting, we now can we can fly a drone, fly a satellite, and it used to be a very laborious process to take all that data, condense it down and give an answer. Now with AI, it can go through that data very quickly. So I like remote sensing. I like turn on your phone and go talk to the chief. Hey, chief, what have they done for you? He goes, well, they said they're going to do a school and the school's not done. Well, that's not okay, right? So that's the type of interaction we want on the ground. We're not afraid of it. And we know the communities will embrace it because they'll benefit.
Yes. So now talk to me about carbon clarity, because I think this is where it has become the brainchild of implementing and bettering and integrating the use of technology in the carbon credit monitoring and reporting and verification system.
Sure. So think of this. So when a project developer comes to a country, let's say it's a forest project, I'm going to go to the Minister of Forestry. If it's in agriculture, I'm going to go to the Minister of Ag. If it's in energy, I'm going to go to the Minister of Energy. Even though they're supposed to go through the newly created Minister of Environment, it doesn't happen that way. So now you have 4 different data silos you've created and no one knows who's doing what.
Yes.
So that's where carbon clarity comes in. It's a technology that we said, you know what? It's a portal. No matter what ministry, what project's coming through, the project developer has to put their data in there. It has to put their plan in there. And then we're going to audit that plan from beginning to end. We're going to follow the money and all the way through. And we're going to check the boxes along the way digitally. So you don't, and the project developer has to be honest on the plan, which we can bump up against the registry. And then the country controls who comes in the country and controls their natural resources, because it's your natural resources. Why should someone come in and say, you know what, we're going to protect that tree? No, I think you need to reverse it. I think the government says we have a bunch of trees. Let's put an RFP out. What's the best project developer? I want them to be in country. Like in Uganda, you have Build Uganda, right? Why Uganda, Build Uganda? It has to be a Uganda company. Why can't that be the same thing? Why can't we take the 50, 60, 70% of unemployment and educate them on doing carbon credit projects and have them be project developers? It's an income. It's $2 trillion a year. That's how much money is flowing through carbon credits in both the compliance market and the voluntary market. There's 2 different markets. That's life-changing.
Yes. So now, yes, at that point you have mentioned, actually, yes, this would operate as a system, a one-stop shop. Everything is in there. The developers, because you mentioned, yes, there would be a module for the developers, the investors, the carbon registries, even the carbon credit buyers. So yes.
In the communities. They
Yes.
can actually see what's happening.
Yes, I think that is actually quite revolutionary and quite something that's needed and very much needed right now. Because you did mention that one of the biggest problems is that the verifiers are using archaic ways of verifying this carbon credit.
Yes.
Yes. So I also wanted to find out, how would the system work with the voluntary and the compulsory carbon credit system, verification system? Because like you've mentioned, for me, what I picked from your book is that it seems the voluntary system of carbon credits is more predatory, and it's because of the limited regulation, it's willing buyer, willing seller. So this is the one that has left our local communities at the biggest loss. Unlike the one which requires compliance, where yes, it's not doing well, but at least this one has some oversight in form of maybe sometimes it's the government or international regulatory agencies.
Correct.
So how would the system harness both these features, the voluntary willing buyer, willing seller? And because it's willing buyer, willing seller, usually it's the person with the highest bargaining power will take it.
Sure.
Unlike the compliance system, where there is a bit of oversight and control.
Yes. So let's start with the voluntary first.
Yes.
So it's more than just a willing buyer and a willing seller. There's a lot of process in the middle there to make sure that the carbon credit you're selling to me, and I'm a buyer, is legit. And I, as a buyer, would love to see everything along the way. So I would have access to carbon clarity. If I'm going to buy it, it's on a country's registry. I want to see all the data that supports that this carbon credit is real. That's the voluntary. And so the voluntary market is growing faster than the compliance market.
Yes.
Because it was 2030. I think it's 2050 now. I don't know. It's supposed to be net zero by whatever date. It was 2030. The companies have to be net neutral, meaning net zero emissions by 2030. I think they just changed it to 2050.
Yes.
Don't quote me on that. It just keeps moving back. So that demand is growing faster than any supply. And when I look at Africa, what do you have? You have the Congo Basin, second to the Amazon.
Yes.
It's getting destroyed left and right due to charcoal, due to farming, you name it. I see it everywhere. And I ask the chiefs, why do you keep doing this? And they say, we have no jobs. Give us jobs and we'll stop burning the forest down. So we're starting with income first.
Yes.
Because unless you start with income,
Yes.
game on.
Yes.
Who cares?
I agree.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the biggest problem with fostering environment sustainability and undertaking climate action. Unlike out there in the developed world, or as they say, the global north, in the global south, we can't tackle climate change without addressing the underlying social and economic challenges. You cannot come and tell someone that now it's time to use biochar.
Right.
It's time to, that you shouldn't plant beans or you shouldn't plant maize the whole year. It's destroying your soil. Someone is going to ask you, how am I going to survive? I need to feed my family. This is my livelihood. What do you expect me to do? Yes.
So we came up with a concept, and we're implementing it now. It's a company that's starting with income first in communities, creating smart villages. So they're resilient, they're rewired, run by women, for women in the communities. And it will also then have a carbon credit component to it. And it starts with income first. When we studied all the smart villages and all the carbon credit projects, all that stuff, no one ever did anything about income. Never. Every NGO out there, we have 600 million people in Africa that don't have electricity. We have 400 million that don't have clean water, but yet NGOs have spent $1 trillion trying to do that. why has it not been fixed? Because they don't focus on the community and what they need and the income. So we're starting there first, and then we'll work our way up to whatever, if it's carbon credits, whatever the issue du jour and whatever they need done, that's where the focus is going to be. So it's a novel idea. I thought someone would have done this. I went and looked. Every smart village out there, not one ever mentioned sustainable jobs or income. Not one. So I'm not going to build a school. I'm not going to build a water well and give jobs. And then you, the community, can do with what you want with the money.
Yes. Now, is there any country where carbon clarity has been implemented and it's currently working, or it's just still in development?
It's developed. It's now just getting the government to say, yeah, we want to focus on that.
Okay.
We're getting there. It's you got to work with the government. You got to work within there.
Yes. I actually was going to say that out of all the key players in the carbon credit space, the person who would be the trickiest and the hardest to get on board would be government.
Yeah.
But once you have them on board, because they provide legitimacy and they provide credibility, then it would be easier for all other players to get on board. Because in any case, the government is the regulators. So they set the compliance systems.
Right.
So everyone else would have to get on board, or they won't operate in the carbon credit space.
Right.
So I wanted to find out, other than us, yes, carbon credits are crap. I agree with you, as it is right now. So where do we go from here?
Here do we go.
How do we make it better? Because we have to make it better.
We have to.
But we have to understand that even as we hear, even when I first heard about carbon credits, I was very skeptical. I was like, this is the new cancer that has existed around Africa in form of foreign aid. That is foreign aid coming, but it is not bettering the communities. It hasn't done so for the last 50 years.
Yeah.
Now here we are, climate change solutions presenting themselves in form of carbon credits. And now the new substitute for that. We are just continuing the narrative where people feel like people always come here in Africa, present solutions, but it's not a solution. It's more of siphoning out what the natural resources and exploiting the natural resources and going out there, but leaving people here are the same as they were 20 years ago.
Right.
No benefit, no impact, just still in the same cycle of problems that we always experience every single day.
So we see a change coming.
Yes.
And it's due to AI. Okay. So AI is coming. The train is coming. And I working with the Minister of Mines and the Minister of Environment, Minister of Finance, like the U.S. is tripling down on AI infrastructure, building data centers, increasing the grid, the infrastructure. What all that needs to be able to have a data center is minerals. Africa sits on top of all the minerals. Congo next door sits on $27 trillion of unmined minerals.
Yes.
I just was with the Minister of Mines in New York. And I said, sir, what are you worried about the most? And he said, the environment. That's first. I've never heard a Minister of Mine care about the environment. He goes, I know it's coming. I know the train is coming. Once it's out of the ground, it's not going to regrow. So what are we going to do about it? So I will tell you, because of AI, call it the AI train, it's either going to run through you guys or you're going to stop it and say, nope, we're going to do this the right way. Not every minister of mine thinks that way. I was just with another one, said he has no problem. So I'm like, okay, okie dokie. So that's coming, and that is the opportunity for Africa to say, time out. We're not going to destroy our water that we keep destroying. We have mercury, we have cyanide. The water's disgusting. I was just in the Copper Belt in Zambia. The water is destroyed from copper mining, destroyed. And it's like, what government, I'm trying to understand, what government thinks that's okay for their people? And I keep asking, because Minister of Mines, I keep asking these guys, at what point do you say enough's enough? What point? So what I'm seeing is there are countries that are saying no more. Look at Botswana. Look at Angola. They're like,
Africa.
no more. No, South Africa, not there. Botswana and Angola, no more raw diamonds. Leave our country. We will finish the products here, and then we will sell them to you, De Beers. You look at the Sea Hill, Burkina Faso, Chad, Niger, Mali. No more raw uranium coming out. None of that. We'll do it here. We'll sell it to you guys. So Africa was always been a raw material exporter until you move up that food chain and become a finished product and care about what happens. Because when the U.S., when we do a mine, the environmental people are right there and they make your life hell to make sure that everything is clean. And why not Africa? Why not stand up? So I'm really looking for the Minister of Mines to step up a lot. Because I already heard it once. So now I'm going to make sure he puts his,
I think I would like that approach, but at the risk of sounding idealistic, really. Because amidst us wanting to put our foot down, sometimes there are things that you would say are sometimes beyond. We always are forced to look beyond the environmental perspective of things. Yes, for example, now where a country's minerals are leveraged to end a political instability, then it leaves, if it's an African country, we end up being left at a position where you have limited bargaining power, really. Right. So
I disagree. I think you have a great bargaining power. It's a mindset. Because I hear that all the time. And what if the most powerful word that we can ever use is no. No, that's not going to work for me. And I guarantee the U.S., Australia, I'm speaking at critical mineral conferences now, battery mineral conferences. Everyone needs what you want because everybody's trying to beat China, right? Everybody's trying to beat China. So guess what? You are in the power position. In fact, when I met the Minister of Mines of Congo, I went up to him and I said, sir, right now you're the most powerful man in the world. And he looked at me. He goes, so I've been told. And I go, what are you going to do with that power? He goes, I got to make sure the environment doesn't get destroyed. So I think it's okay to say no, but is there a will to say no? Because I've heard excuses. I've seen it firsthand for a lot of time. But the most powerful you can do to say, nope, that's not going to work for me. Here's what does.
Yes. So as someone who has really experienced Africa and you have been here for a while, are there any success stories that you can pinpoint to in terms of carbon credits?
No.
But there must be one in the pipeline.
Not in Africa. No. Biochar is the closest thing.
Yes.
So biochar, you know what biochar, you want me to explain it real quick?
You can explain.
Sure. So biochar comes from either crop or tree waste. And you take that and you put it, think of a 20-foot cargo container called a pyrolysis machine. And it condenses all that crop waste or tree waste into what we call charcoal or biochar. Biochar is charcoal's eco-friendly cousin because it's all contained. It's not going up in the air like you burn it in the field. Once that comes out, that is the most valuable carbon credit right now there is. It's $200 a metric ton.
And there's no one doing it here?
Not yet. We're working on it. Not yet. Okay. Not yet. Maybe on small scale, but nothing big. But we're getting ready to do something about it. Once that's done, then you mix it with a manure, like a chicken manure, and it becomes a very rich fertilizer, which helps what? Soil reclamation. Goes back into the soil. It stays for a century. It reduces water needs by a third. And what is one thing, Africa, you have 60% of your population are subsistence farmers. Now you have a fertilizer business. Government doesn't have to keep subsidizing NPK from Ukraine or wherever it's coming from to create a fertilizer. You could have a fertilizer business within each country just by taking crop waste. Forget the tree waste, the crop waste.
So there is hope for us.
100%.
Yes.
And we're going to help steer it that way.
Yes. So now, someone who has read this book, what would you tell them? Because I have read, and it is quite an informative book. If anyone can see, I've scribbled down a lot.
Wow, you're my top reader.
I keep on, like, that is just me anyway. That's how I read. It's been a very busy book. You can even see on the sides, it's traveled, it's seen around. Yes. So I would really love for someone to read this book, especially someone who is really interested in getting to learn about carbon credits, because even me, when I picked it up, I literally just had surface knowledge about carbon credits. But if you woke me up and you ask me about carbon credits, then I would mumble words and I wouldn't know what carbon credits are. But this has been quite resourceful because it first delves into the dynamics of what carbon credits are. And it also delves into the foundational aspects that could be crippling the successful implementation of carbon credit projects in Africa. Yes. And then it goes on to also delve into the hope, solutions, what's there for the future and how to make it better. So yes, encourage someone.
Yes, please read it.
Me, I didn't need to be encouraged, but someone may need it really, yes.
Yeah, and the simplest carbon credit, because people don't know what they are, but when you buy an airline ticket,
yes,
and it says, do you want to reduce your emissions? And you check yes and pay your $10, that's a carbon credit. There's one company in Norway that buys all these carbon credits called Choose, CHOOOSE, buys them for cents on the dollar, packages them, and sells them to the airlines. And the airlines sell them to you.
Wow.
Yeah. That's a carbon credit. It does nothing. It does not reduce your emissions because it's not helping the people on the ground. Unless it's helping the people on the ground, which then help the environment, it's worthless.
Okay, as a Ugandan, one last question. Hope for us in terms of carbon credit projects, so that we are sure they are not crap and that they are not, carbon credits should not exploit communities, but we ensure that communities benefit from them, because I will admit carbon credits regulation has just come up here in Uganda, and there has been a recent increasing uptake of carbon credit projects being implemented. So yes, one last word. What do you think we can do to ensure that we avoid or minimize what has been experienced in all the other countries that you've been to?
Yeah, hold them accountable. Like, you're a consumer. You're the ones going to buy these, or you're supporting companies that buy them. Make sure, like if you were investing in a stock, what would you do? You would do your diligence. You would make sure you'd be able to see the carbon credit, what is it going to, and you can see the actual traceability. And when it doesn't add up, then you know what? Go out like I did. Go out and say, I'm going to go to whatever. I'm going to go, where am I going to go? I'm going to go to Mahinga. I'm going to go to Mahinga. I'm going to look at those forests, which I know they're actually making charcoal in the national park, because I've seen it. And I'm like, what?
Yes.
Like, no, we're protecting this. I'm like, these guys are camping out here making charcoal.
Yes.
So be an advocate for your communities. We all come from a community. Make sure they know what's happening, because you have to have community approval to do any of this. Whether it's a community-led project or a project developer, they have to sign. And Senior Chief Musheli, who he's on the back cover, he's the paramount chief. He's the chief of all chiefs of the Lamba tribe, which is Congo and Zambia. And he just watched my YouTube. I didn't know him. He reached out to me. He goes, I know I get screwed in every deal. I just didn't know how badly I got screwed. So now educate. So read the book, understand what your rights are and what you should be getting, and you demand it. Because if the community doesn't sign that piece of paper, no projects happen. No one can force a community to accept a project. Nobody.
Yes. All right. Thank you so
You're
much,
so welcome.
Jaye. Yes, it's been great having you. Now, for all those who are not aware, a carbon credit subcrop by Jaye is available in Aristoc. At least that's where I got from a copy. And I'm entirely sure there are still quite a number of copies in Aristoc. So you can go and get it and learn about carbon credits, learn about carbon credit projects, and also learn that at least what I've picked is that in order to ensure that carbon credit projects benefit local communities must arm themselves with information, and they should become the voices to save their environment, to save nature, but also save their countries from the predatory practices of carbon credits projects, because that's the only way that we can ensure that we benefit and ensure that investment is environmentally sensitive, but also socially beneficial to our communities. Thank you so much. I've been your host, Grace, driving eco-sustainability, my perspective. Till next time, you can watch, learn, and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more exciting stories. Thank you. Till next time.
Thank you so much for watching this video. I do value the time that you put in to watch every episode. The entire essence I started this channel was to enhance the reach of the voices of those people who are contributing to the fight against climate change and those who are fighting to save our environment. If you liked this video, click the subscribe button so that you can equally contribute to enhancing awareness towards climate action. Let's save our planet together.